Welcome to this edition of The Fix, where every Sunday we hold those in power to account. We tell you what matters, how it affects you, and why you should care. Following large-scale abuse and irregularities in the payment of the Unemployment Insurance Fund, Employment and Labour Minister Thulas Nxesi sacked the entire top management of the fund in an effort to clean up corruption. But his efforts have not impressed his comrades in the Labour Federation, COSATU, who said he should take ultimate responsibility for the mess. Well, for his response to this, I'm joined now by the Employment and Labour Minister, Thulas Nxesi. Good afternoon, Minister. Thank you so much for being my very first guest in my new slot at 12 noon. Thanks for taking the time out. Just quickly, political, or rather your former comrades in the trade unions, Matthew Parks, to quote him, says that the COSATU needs to stress that it wants political accountability. So it says that you as the political head should take responsibility. It's not satisfied with you sacking, the top brass of the UIF. Your comment, please.
Thank you, Karima. All I can say is that UIF has been a success despite the challenges it faces. And remember that the UIF had to reconfigure its systems within a very short space of time to accommodate the millions of the claimants who, some of them were not even in the system because they were not registered by the employers. And the millions of the workers were paid. Of course, criminals saw this particular loophole and took advantage of our weak systems and the poor controls. But I note what Matthew Parks is saying, that the minister is responsible. Let me note that statement, but and the minister, or as a minister, I've not reneged on my accountability roles. Hence, I took action immediately and when I received the report. By the way, UIF has a board, in my opinion, which has the fiduciary responsibilities, and that board is made of all network social partners, business, community, government, and even labor. And when there are problems, we must all own up.
So, Minister, just park that quickly. Are you saying that this board constitutes itself from the social partners in NEDLAC? COSATU serves there as a big federation in the labour sector. Are you saying COSATU too should take responsibility for the mess at the UIF?
I am saying the board should also own up, and the board, it's representing the different stakeholders. They must also account. And I'm arguing that to move forward, we must all look at the solutions together with the board, because it's also accountable, the management which have suspended, including myself. Nonetheless, I've said as an executive authority, I'm ultimately responsible for oversight and policy direction of the UIF entity and of the department. But I must emphasize this, Karima. I want to emphasize this point that ministers, in terms of the PFMA, are prohibited from influencing and participating in the day-to-day activities of the supply chain processes, the procurement and the financial operations, and even micromanaging the departments, because they will enter into the areas which are not theirs.
Okay.
So this is my response to that. But I'm not ready to pick up a fight. I'm saying let's sit and deal with the issues, all of us.
Okay, so everybody knew that the current UIF, as it was structured, nobody could imagine COVID-19 happening. You didn't prepare for it. So everyone knew the system was going to have constraints. At what point into the payments, once the monies were made available, Minister, did you become aware that there is a massive problem?
Well, at the beginning, I insisted that we are going to be dealing with the big monies, we're dealing with the millions of the workers. Right from that stage, I instructed that the management, they should not pay the benefits until the systems were in place. And I was assured by the commissioner and his executive that they had put all the measures. And then we agreed that they must continue paying. However, we had said right from the beginning, because we're anticipating problems, make sure that we also put a system which we called we're going to follow the money on a monthly basis. We do the auditing of that. But from the beginning, we were able to pick up a few cases where there were people who were trying to do some fraud. You would remember that.
So, Minister, when you picked up that, when the red flags went off, why didn't you intervene then?
There were people who were reported to the police, they were followed, and that's why. And some of those people have already appeared in court.
When you say people were reported, who exactly were reported and which positions do they hold in the unemployment insurance fund, given the fact that you still at the end had to sack the top management? So obviously it wasn't the top brass.
But Karima, you don't do that. You look at if there's a pattern. There were few cases at that particular time. And I think at the beginning when people said the systems are not good and they have to do and tweak the systems. They had to do that, and they were able to do that. And they started the payment. But there were people who were able to be arrested through our own internal audit and through the internal audit and our own risk management unit. And those people were brought to book as we speak now, even before the AG audit. There were about 38 cases which we were dealing with, and those cases are likely to be more. And those cases, some of them have been opened, and some of them have to appear in court or have already appeared in court.
Okay,
so
Minister, just give me an idea of how this works, because when you look at the reports, it is clear. It says here over 200,000 was paid to 53 applicants who were under the legal working age of 15 years. Individuals that at Home Affairs were said that deceased people received something like 400,000, and it essentially looks like several departments had to cooperate with the UIF to make this corruption work. So you have Home Affairs involved, you have the prisons involved, you have the UIF involved. Does this speak, Minister, to corruption across those departments? Because presumably if you get rid of the entire management of the UIF, the corruption networks in correctional services and in Home Affairs are still there. Where exactly are you directing this investigation at?
I would not say that those departments themselves, but there will be individuals who are implicated. And obviously there's a corruptor and a corruptee. Clearly, there were those inside the UIF, there were those who were also outside the UIF, and the public servants were in person. And like you are saying, even in the UIF itself, those people were paid in the different institutions. But also what this talks to, it talks to lack of integration in terms of our IT systems, which are supposed to be talking to each other. This is a matter which we have to address very quickly as the different departments.
So Minister, if I am supposed to hold you accountable, the Minister for Communications keeps on talking about the fourth industrial revolution. Here we have a situation where you are saying IT systems is responsible because it's not integrated, it's not talking to each other. If one is to point the finger at the lack of a government integrated IT system, where does that finger get pointed?
I know that this is a matter which was raised some years ago, and that process, I don't know where it is, but this is a matter which must be immediately taken up by the different, especially those who are doing the big transactions. And I can't just point a finger at a particular department. I think all of us as government, we must be responsible to ensure that we have the right systems.
You see, Minister, where I'm going with this is that I could have all the departments here and all of them could say it's the IT. And then at some point we're going to find out exactly who does IT in government. But one would have thought that a government that has signaled that the fourth industrial revolution is a center piece of how you govern, that this isn't a problem, that you would bring your tech expertise to this. And more importantly, it also shows that even if you sack the top layer of this leadership at the UIF, until those systems are in place, other people are going to be able to exploit the existing loopholes. So where does this take us, Minister? What else needs to be done except the people that have been put on precautionary suspension?
You are correct. There are IT-related issues. We need to bring the solutions. That's what we are working now with the Treasurer. That's what we are doing to look at the whole UIF, including compensation fund system, to look at the structures, to look at the business models, to look at the whole system. This is something which we had started dealing with before COVID, but unfortunately, we had to focus on COVID. But over and above the issue of the IT system, Karima, there are basic financial controls which are supposed to have been put there, which are dealing with the procurement. And we're dealing with those issues, about issues of procurement, which were not done properly. So whilst we will be dealing with the issue of the IT systems, correcting it here and there, and coming up with a major one, but basic controls are supposed to be there. The internal weaknesses and the issues of the data analytics and the employer verification is going to be very important, that we have a huge database.
When you look at the numbers and you look at the nature of the problem, would you say that criminals were able to get loopholes in the systems because of corrupt individuals, or systems that are so poorly designed, that a high school child sitting in his garage can break your systems? Where exactly is the weakest point of the system, and where have the criminals been able to lay you low, so to speak?
The AG has directed us to further investigate other issues. We have also requested the Fusion Center, where the SIU is, and other law enforcement, to look into this matter. But it appears as if it's a combination of corrupt people inside, but also they've exploited, of course, they've exploited the weakness of our poor systems.
Just give me an example, Minister. I'm trying to figure this out, right? You're saying that people haven't done verification. So, for example, if someone is supposed to be paid a UIF, what is the basic steps that needs to be taken to ensure that the person that is going to be paid is the person that has to be paid, whether it's an individual or a company, and who does that verification? All
I know, you need to submit all your details, including your ID, which is very key, which must be checked with the system of the Home Affairs. You have to have the employer's details there. You have to have the UIF registration number. Those are the basic things which I know that you need to have. And there are different officials, and those officials who are doing the verification would be maybe in the middle or low management. However, the management has to satisfy themselves and do a lot of tests that everything has been verified. You have the COO, even the CFO is supposed, before payment, to get an assurance that all that has been done.
So when people were saying that people who were deceased got UIF payments, people who weren't qualified in terms of having worked these specific times, how does that person's information go through a checklist in your system and skips the security ring fences that you've put around it?
I don't want to speculate here, Karima, but some little information which we're having, and we're still following it, and I think the forensic is going to help us here, the law enforcement are going to help, is indicating that people were using very archaic stuff, old data, which is not up to date, and have not been updating this particular system. But I don't want to vouch for that. That is the cause. These are the issues which we are going to be able to discover what actually happened.
Now, Minister, I'm going to perhaps burst your bubble here. I'm speaking to the Police Commissioner, Thulas Nxesi, later on in the show. And here's the problem. Even the police stands accused of dealing with criminals and being connected and alleged to being involved in corrupt activities. What faith do you have in the law enforcement agencies who themselves stand accused of being corrupt in relation to PPE and the COVID-19, pandemic? What faith do you put in them to come to the bottom of the corruption in your department, given the fact that the corruption in the police related to this matter is so, entrenched in itself?
Well, if there are individual cases of corrupt elements within the police, we should be very careful that we don't paint all the police with the same brush and say they are all corrupt. There are people who have done sterling work and who have been able to catch criminals in the different areas. And let's allow them to do that work, and do not try and accuse them on the basis of some few criminal elements who might have done that.
Okay, so let's come back to the UIF. You've now put all of these people on precautionary leave. South Africans take that for code. You go home and you get your full pay, and the investigation may find you guilty, or it might actually clear you, as it's done in so many other state institutions. What happens whilst these people are on leave with full pay? Who's running the UIF, and what disciplinary processes happen in relation to these individuals?
They have been suspended with their benefits. Remember, you have to follow the law. The audi alteram partem rule is very important, that you hear the other side, especially as the Department of Employment and Labour would be the last to violate those rules. We have to stick to the rules. And if you don't stick to the rules, you can even lose a case if you have a case on the basis of just technicalities by not following the rules. Those people have been put aside in order for further investigations to go deeper. And then would depend on the investigations. We can't and if there's something from those investigations they have to answer, we will start putting the processes for them to answer.
Okay, Minister, I want you to distinguish the investigations, because, you know, South Africans need clarity on these matters. I want to know what internal investigations happen and whether there are criminal investigations that are running parallel to this. Which ones are you referring to, Minister?
Criminal investigations, we are putting it to the law enforcement. But the issues relating to our own processes, forensic is doing that so that we can be able to say this or that official has not been able to do the work. And then on the basis of that, we can start making them to answer and put all those DC processes. Then we are also doing our own internal processes in the department.
Okay, so let's be more specific, Minister. Let's talk about time frames, right? Because when you came into some of the ministries, I remember when you were at, you know, the other ministry that you headed up, what is this, Public Works, you said that this is, you know, everyone's acting. There's no one that's permanent and you can't effect change. And people were acting for years and years, and that's how these institutions were captured. So give us timelines. How long is it going to take for the internal processes in the Department of Employment and Labour to conclude, so that we can establish whether the people that you've suspended needs to be sacked and needs to also be criminally prosecuted? Give us the timeline here.
Okay. See, the issue of the investigation, let's allow those processes and do not preempt. What if the investigators believe that they must take more time and go deeper? Of course, we know that the public is very concerned that we have to act swiftly and quickly. Maybe we give ourselves about 3 weeks to a month, but we can't be exact and say by this particular time they would have been able to crack whatever they are in. Let's allow for that particular process. And you know that, and people must know that the law is the law. Even if you were to charge those people, they also have legal representation. They might come back and say, on this I'm still preparing, and my response is, and you're talking about the law, and you must respect that particular law.
No, absolutely,
So
Minister. I'm not suggesting that you don't follow the law. I am asking you for a sense of time and urgency, because, you know, justice must also be seen to be done. We can't have a situation where investigations go on forever. So what is the maximum time that an internal departmental investigation can take to find whether someone has a case to answer? You have taken the decision to suspend them. So something obviously must have led you to that. For lack of a better word, there should be, in your case, a prima facie evidence, as the legal people say, for you to do that. There must be a real material basis. So it's not as if these people are going to start from scratch. So what is the maximum time that an investigation like this can last?
Unfortunately, Karima, that is not prescribed in the law. I can just take it from the top of my head. Let's go for proper investigation so that we have proper cases which we present. Otherwise, we'll just rush for the sake of saying we are doing it swiftly and end up missing a lot of steps and the issues.
Okay, so the people who were, done by, in terms of the corruption, the people who didn't get their UIF, the monies that you've given to people that you shouldn't have given, can you recoup any of that monies? Can you redirect the monies to go where it's supposed to go? Does the system have that capacity, Minister?
We are going to follow the money we've said. That's why we, even before there was the AG audit, we had said we are appointing the auditors and many firms to follow each and every cent we've paid. If it's wrong, we are going to demand it back or take people to court. But we have assured that those who have not been paid, we are going to make sure that we take our system properly and we are able to pay the people, no matter how long it takes. But we must apologize to those people who were hard done by us for the inconvenience which has been done to them and even the families because of these corrupt elements.
Final question, Minister. Who's in charge of the UIF? And are you sure that because you've caught the problem, that the problem won't persist now that you've gotten rid of the top leadership?
We've put an acting commissioner there who's our COO, Masha Bronkhorst. We have also requested the treasurer has some people from the GTEC who are helping us. They are also looking and correcting the system. And we are likely to go to the cabinet and even the DPSA, Department of Public Service and Administration, and request to have 1 or 2 additional experts who might be brought from outside to come and help us to continue the payment properly and to do what I would call fundamental restructuring of the both funds, that is the UI and the compensation fund. Look at the structures, look at the business model, look at the IT systems, and also look at the skills and capacity.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you so very much to Employment and Labour Minister Thulas Nxesi. Still ahead, what's the delay in cleaning up a captured National Prosecuting Authority? Stay with us.